If you've been looking for a way to get consistent and predictable results in your client acquisition process, then this will be the single most valuable video you can watch this year. We're going to speak about why every business owner wants to see the future and be at ease with the forecast. And we'll see how we can help and empower consistent and predictable results by using systems and automations. But what we need to understand first is that automation requires standardization. Oftentimes, a lot of people in businesses like to jump the gun and go for automation right away. But the question is, what would you be automating? You see, a business in itself is a mix of operations and processes. And oftentimes, business owners will react, meaning they will react to environment circumstances, market circumstances, lead situations with different methods. Maybe today they'll use one method and tomorrow they may use another method, or they may hear that one method works better for somebody and they will try and apply that in hopes to get the same results. And so over time they will get into this habit of really just reacting and jumping from one method to the other. While when you want to really automate, you need to standardize your operations and processes, meaning you'll have a standardized process for reaching out, a standardized process for actually getting people's interest, for getting people to book appointments, what you'll do with the people in appointments, and how you'll get those people from the appointment stage to the client stage. All of that is the foundation to be able to actually go back and then automate it. So you need standardization. And to basically systematize your business and get consistent and predictable results, you need a system. And this system is basically a process where you put in something on the one side, it goes through a process in the middle, and out comes a desired result. In terms of the client acquisition, this will mean that on the one side, you may put in leads and they go through your process, and on the other side comes out customers. Or you may put in strangers. If it's cold acquisitions, you may be putting in strangers and taking them through your process, and out as a result will come your clients at the end of it. And so the system, these three steps and these three components at minimum are required to get consistent and predictable results so that you can and are able to forecast the future with ease, as we just said. But there's also a reason in all of this why we moved away from the result-driven approach. The thing with the result-driven approach was that basically and fundamentally it relied heavily on it was tied to methods. So this kind of chained down the way that we could work with our clients and the individual approach that our clients took to their business. Because we noticed over some years in working with different clients that most of the time our clients knew better. They were better at understanding their audience than we were. And they just really required an empowerment to be able to take their business to the next level, to be able to standardize their operations, to be able to automate their business. And so we basically noticed that, a lot of clients who had been in this business for a few years were going back and forth between different methods and approaches and how they would do these things. And oftentimes they didn't even track their activities. So they kind of knew, all right, when the season changes, I do things this way. And, when the pipeline starts running low, I do some outreach activities. But there wasn't really more to go on. And honestly, this was an approach that was not scalable. It was not even duplicatable. So if they wanted to grow by bringing in partners or by even having a VA replace them so they had more time to do other stuff, this wasn't really possible because they had specialized it so much around their own ability to react that it almost became an art. But if you want to duplicate something, you need to turn it into a science that can be repeated, a science that has a recipe that anybody can follow to get the same results. And so this is where we saw that, by handing our clients a system, an approach to standardizing their operations, and then to systematizing it and giving them the tools they needed to automate it and really efficiently test it out and validate their approaches, they then were able to, as a result of that, attain a state where their system would bring consistent and predictable results, where they would be able to forecast their results and know that if I did more of this, it would result in more of that. And because I'm not doing enough of this, it is resulting in less of that. And that is all due to a systematic approach to all of this. And that's fundamentally also why we moved away from the result-driven approach. The world is full of people that see one method and see the other and are just really jumping and chasing one opportunity, and they're really just running around and chasing, as you could say, shiny objects. And a good way to explain this scenario is the gold rush, and who the true winners of the gold rush were. Because you see, there was a time when people swore that all they had to do was head out to the mountains and the rivers, and all they needed was a spade and a sifting bucket, and that they would find that nugget, that one-hit wonder, and it would solve all of their problems. They would become rich and wealthy. And the thing was that this hope and this shiny object was so powerful that it drew in thousands of people. Maybe over the time span of those years, it drew in millions of people who came and unfortunately left again with their heads sunk to the ground. And the only ones who really were the winners, who came out as the champions, were the people who were selling the shovels and motivating the heck out of the people. And I like to use this ironically because nowadays it's kind of similar with all these methods. When the market is full of people promising outcomes and promising results based on this method or that method, even if it's a method my client used and this and that. The thing is, however, that it may work for someone within their circumstances and maybe for another person because their situation is similar. But what really makes methods work are the principles behind them and the principles that drive them. And I would like to start this talk and take it to a really great quote in regards to systematization. So we're going to start our talk on the client acquisition system that we use and we create and build for our clients, and basically take them through setting this up. And the quote I want to present to you that kind of encapsulates the entire idea I'm trying to bring across here is by Harrington, Emerson. And he said, as methods, there may be a million and some, but principles are few. The man who grasps principles can successfully select his own methods. The man who tries methods, ignoring principles, is sure to have trouble. And this basically takes it to where what I'm trying to say is that this whole mechanism and the whole thing that really differentiates people being successful with their client acquisition method and using their marketing and those who aren't is really understanding the principles that are at work. And there are a set of fundamental principles that over the years and trial and error and spending a lot of money, time, and frustration getting these things down and testing them and adapting them, we've come to see that there is a set of principles that basically aligns with everything that we do when we set up our systems, and that are basically is the fundamental. Like, I've noticed these principles, once you've learned this, what you're about to learn will go against your paradigm, maybe and probably, but I ask you to bear with me here, because as we go through this, it will not only change the way you see your approach to systematization and automation and client acquisition in itself, but it will change the future course of your entire business, I guarantee. So to actually grasp the whole fundamental framework that we use, there are basically 4 fundamental principles that need to be understood. One is Hegel's Dialectic. The other is the system thinking theory. The next one is something referred to as sensitive dependency on initial conditions, also known as the butterfly effect. And then we have Ceteris Paribus. Ceteris Paribus, which is a Latin term meaning if all things left, or if all things equal, and kind of has to do with a very interesting concept that I'm going to introduce to you. And once it clicks, I guarantee you will be like, whoa, this may be the missing link that connects all of the dots in all of my efforts. Because you may be somebody who's not just new, you may not be new to marketing, but you may be watching this because you've done a lot, you've tried a lot, and you've paid for this method, you've paid for that method, and it may have worked for a short time and then it didn't work. And like a can of soda, you'd drink it up, sip it up, and when it was empty, you'd have to replace it again. But after this, and after we go through these principles and the framework of client acquisition that you can set up for yourself afterwards if you so wish, then you will never again need to be jumping and chasing after shiny objects or methods. Because as the quote said, if you understand the principles, you will be able to create the methods. So after this process, you will really be able to think. I'm not going to be giving you any shiny methods, but you will be able to think. And I would like to think myself that what I'm giving you here is liberating your mind and empowering you to be able to use systems to your advantage. And so the first principle that we need to kind of get a grasp of is Hegel's Dialectic. And Hegel was a German philosopher, 19th century, and he's kind of known for his dialectical method, and it describes a contradictory process between opposing sides, also known as the thesis, the antithesis, and then the synthesis. And it's also known as Hegel's slave dialectic, and it tells the story of 2 independent self-consciousnesses who encounter one another and engage in a life and death struggle. The 2 self-consciousnesses must struggle because each one sees the other as threat to itself until the confrontation each self-conscious has seen itself as the measure of all things. So in other words, it's kind of like the battle between the old way versus the new way. So right now, as I said, you may have the old way, your old paradigm of what others told you how things work, how you believe things work, and how you've been doing it so far, which is totally fine. And then I come along here with this systems thinking approach, and what happens here is basically this Hegel's dialectic principle, where the old way of doing things confronts the new way. But the thing is this: your future and success lies within being able to master the new way and really enslave, I know it sounds awkward, the old way to where you have power over it. so that you can manifest your future self. Because the only difference between where you want to be and where you are now is not the time in between it. If you stay who you are now, endless time can pass. You will never get to where you want to be, because there is a transformation involved where you become that future state. And to become that future state, something needs to transform. And that basically happens within this confrontation of thesis and antithesis of your current state and your future state and identity or consciousness, and it turning into the synthesis, meaning the manifestation of where you actually want to be. And so this thesis and antithesis and synthesis is basically your current way, which is the master of your current state. And if you want to achieve your future state, you must take on a new way, a new approach. And so there's a battle between the old way and your current state and the new way or your future state. And this is literally a battle to the death. And only if the new way or the future state can subdue the old way or current state and become its master will you be able to achieve your desired outcomes. And so the old way winning, it is doing things how you always did them. And so, as Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the things the same way but hoping for a different outcome. But the new way is basically standardization of your processes and systems thinking and automation. And the next principle that is really important here is the systems thinking theory. So the systems thinking is a holistic approach to analyzing and putting focus on the way that a system and its parts interrelate and how systems work over time within a certain environment, within the context of a environment or a larger system. You could see this basically as your body, all right? And you are a system and you are within a greater system. But within you as a system, you have subsystems. These subsystems are your nervous system, okay? Your digestive system. You have your metabolism, all right? And you have your heart system. And so basically, these are different systems that when you go to the doctor, for example, your heart system, your cardiovascular system, your doctor will measure your KPIs, your vital signs, all right? Your key performance indicators, all right? Which is basically, he'll check out your metabolism, all right? You may tell him your digestion. He may ask you, how's your digestion been, all right? Your digestive system. He will then, measure your blood pressure, your heartbeat, check out your cardiovascular system. And he'll also check out your nervous system. Back in the old days, you saw in these videos, you saw the doctor like hitting a rubber hammer against somebody's knee. That is basically just testing someone's nervous system. But he may also ask you questions in regards to how you feel, your state of being. Are you happy? Do you feel stressed? And things like that. And why? Because he's taking your KPIs. And for him as a doctor, he knows that if for example, your cardiovascular system, your heartbeat is within a certain level, all right, your blood pressure is within a certain level, that things are fine. And the same holds true for a client acquisition system, for marketing. And most people, however, they go about it without implementing any systematic approach to measuring anything. Like they literally just write copy, pay for ads, and then they just run the stuff, and then they kind of like sit there, hope and pray. Like they spray and pray, they hope it works. And that approach may work sometimes, but the problem is more than often it does not work. And so it's important to understand why, and that has to do with the systems thinking theory that we're talking about. And these systems are mainly, the system thinking finds its best example, if you look at ecosystems, cars, the human bodies, and even organization. And systems thinking is especially taught in analyzing economic systems. It's very much used there, and it's based on the idea that all key processes in an organization are interrelated, all right? And that it's this approach called the cohesive approach that views all the subsystems as part of an overall system. Like the vascular system, the digestive system, your nervous system are all part of your body, as a system. All right. And rather than looking and seeing them as individual parts, all right, so you got stomach ache, you got this, but they're interrelated, and your entire performance as a human, your well-being, relies on these systems being within certain KPIs, all right? And the understanding behind it is basically the systems theory thinking. So what is the opposite of the systems thinking? Well, it's the linear thinking, basically saying there's just a cause and effect. So you have a headache, it has to probably do with your head, all right? Your head is aching, so your head will give you tablets that kind of, trigger, your pain receptors to be blocked, and so you don't have a headache. But, the systems thinking approach and Chinese medicine is very much in tied to this. The traditional approach to this, in terms of the system thinking, in terms of Chinese medicine versus Western medicine or empirical medicine, would be that in Chinese medicine you'll say, all right, what's interconnected? The interconnected system, it could be your digestive system, your stomach, all right? Your stomach has an effect on your head, and what has an effect on your stomach? There are certain emotions that you're dealing with coming in from outside that can have an impact on either your vascular system, your nervous system, or your digestive system. And so the doctor has a whole different set of troubleshooting where the problem could actually be. And so instead of just giving the person a painkiller, or a receptor blocker, the doctor in Chinese medicine may actually recommend or treat the person's digestive system, or may actually recommend that person does certain activities or tries to mitigate certain habits they have when dealing with situations and emotional triggers. And this is the same approach that systemic thinking takes, because it views things as interconnected and holistically. And this transitions into the next step of it, and some of the things that I have already touched upon. So what is the sensitive dependency on initial conditions? What does this principle mean? Well, it kind of relates to the previous principles, in that, Hegel's dialectic means that, all right, this is the foundation to even get into really being successful with your systematization process and really being able to take it somewhere. You need to get into, understand the systems theory. But once you do that, Hegel's dialectic takes place, and the old way, the thesis, and the new way, the antithesis, start fighting a battle to the death. And if you come out successful, you'll create a synthesis of these two things that will really help you be successful. And then, of course, what will guide you is the systems thinking theory that you will need. And what's important as well is, in this process, is the sensitive dependency on initial conditions. This basically means that subsystems are in relationship to the overall system by the rules set to standardize the operations of the subsystem in an overall system. And so there are these connections between your digestive system, your metabolism, your cardiovascular system, and your nervous system. And by standardizing the operations of your subsystem, the system basically And so it's basically by measuring your key performance, the key performance of your subsystems, you can basically get a feedback of the overall health condition of your system. So putting this in backwards perspective, if you look at the overall health of your system, let's say the number of appointments that you're getting, then instead of saying like my entire client acquisition system sucks, let me just throw out the method that I'm using and try another one and see if that one works. Instead of doing that, if we take the systems approach, then we will have a set of subsystems, a process of actually taking someone from a stranger to an appointment. And so we know that if the main key metric is appointments, so depending on how many strangers we talk to and how many appointments we get, if that rate is just really low and we don't have a lot of appointments, then we know that, okay, we either need to put more in to get more out. But that's an approach that most people will usually take when they run ads, and they will just, basically, how do I get better results? Well, just spend more money. And to a certain degree, yeah, spending more money does increase your results, but it doesn't optimize your system. And it's not really a systems thinking approach to solving this problem. What we would do is open up the process, the system, and we would look at the subsystems. So we have one step where we basically take strangers and get their interest, and then we take people with interest and turn them into appointments. Then we have another step where we may make sure that these people that have booked an appointment will show up, and once they show up, we'll have another step that we take them through where we say, okay, this is how we basically prime or pre-frame them and then close them and turn them into clients. And so if we're looking at the part, we know we need appointments. The more appointments we need, the more people will be able to turn into clients. And so if we look at the process and the steps that lead to the appointment, then we'll definitely know that each of these steps are in sensitive dependency to each other. Because let's say I have a certain number of people I reach out to. Let's say I reach out to 100 people, 100 strangers to get their attention. And from the people I reach out to, let's say we reach out to them by phone, we get 100 people's interest in terms of them actually not just picking up, but actually booking an appointment. And so we have this positive response, and they book appointments. And so if we don't have enough appointments, we can now look at what are the variables within this process. All right. So we know one of the variables are the number of phone numbers that we're dialing. Are we dialing enough people? All right. And if that checks off, and let's say we're dialing more than 100 people per week or per day, whatever your reference time frame is, then that's fine. And then we would look at the next step. So how many of these people are actually responding or picking up? And if we have a response rate of people like actually picking up that's within a certain KPI, then we know, all right, the phone numbers, the quality and stuff is healthy as well. So now we would be left with the step between we get the people on the phone, and now, what do we do with them to get them to book an appointment? And so the variables here would basically be, how do we open the conversation? How do we build rapport? How do we pitch whatever we have to pitch? How do we handle objections? How do we loop back into what we're trying to say? And how do we make the close for the appointment? All right. And these variables are things that we could look at step by step and tweak in order to get the value to flow from we're dialing, speaking to people, and then booking appointments. And once we have all these variables tested out, it will create a system that will produce consistent and predictable results for us because of this approach and understanding that there's a sensitive dependency on initial conditions within a system, because the volume of people I call has an effect on the entire outcome. That's the initial condition. How many people am I dialing? Another initial condition that has an effect will be, how many people are picking up. All right, so that's the initial condition. What's the quality of the numbers that I actually have? How many people are picking up? And then it's not just the numbers, like, and another initial condition could be like, what time am I calling them? Am I calling these people in the middle of the night after 5, 6 p.m.? Am I calling them at 4 a.m. in the morning? Or am I calling them at a suitable time where, people are most likely to pick up the phone? So these are initial conditions that all have an effect on the system. And here's the last point, because we often tend to change this, change that, change everything that seems off out of context. But Ceteris Paribus is the final of these very important pillar principles of our client acquisition system, that basically say that if all things are kept equal, we will only change one parameter at a time. And this concept is mainly used in economics to formulate predictions and to kind of describe economic outcomes, because you're basically looking at the entire system and its outcome based on one variable at a time. So you're looking at it from numbers dialed, and then maybe you're just making 20 calls a day or 20 calls a week, and so you dial that up to 100, and then you look at your outcome. Has this done something? How much has it changed? All right, it's done. It's had a change. All right, so let's basically leave it there, and now let's test the next element, which would be basically your the time of the day. When are we calling to get this response rate? And once we get that dialed in within a KPI that's really working, then we go to the next step and say, all right, let's look at the script we're actually using. How are we actually doing this call, and can we improve that? And then once we've gone through this and optimized each step, always just optimizing one and then going through a run of process, then only changing it. Because you see, you need a certain amount of data to produce the numbers and patterns that you need to get the required feedback. And so basically what I'm talking about, you can imagine it, the illustration of all of this and what I'm basically talking about is basically like is basically nothing else than a system. All right, a system that consists of an input, a process, and a output. All right, your system is embedded in the environment. This back part here, that's your environment. And as you run your system, you have your input, you have your strangers that you pour in here, and then the process you take them through, and then you have the result. And the type and the metric that you're measuring is the feedback. So you basically getting a feedback from your environment whether your process is working or not. And so if it's not working, or it's not working to the degree you want it to work, you then basically iterate that process and take it another step further. And this basically is your system working and functioning within an environment. And this is the first and most important stage and level you need to take to systematization. Once you understand these 4 principles, you will then be capable to actually create and build your own system. You'll be able to systematize your client acquisition process. All right, but only because you are aware of what it takes to actually build a system. And that's why I said in the beginning, systematization is more than just automating something. And most people like to start by automating, but it really starts in your mind and getting your head straight and understanding what is actually going to change for your business. And because it's changing for your business, what it's going to change in you and what you need to change, and the battle that's going to happen with the old way and the new way for you to actually run the system. So there's often more involved, and it's not you part of it. You're part of this environment. You're part of the input. You're part of the process, and you're also part of the output. So you're also part of what needs to be iterated from the feedback over and over and over again. So now we've taken a look at systems and automations, and we've taken a look at the core principles, the fundamental principles required to actually set up and run a system. Let's get into the nitty-gritties of an actual system and how we would apply these principles to create a client acquisition process. Well, number one, let's start at the back and reverse engineer it. So every business, is kind of in the business of delivering results, right? But to deliver results, we need to basically sell. All right, we need to sell someone on the offer and get them to want us to deliver that result or product for them. But before we can sell to anybody, all right, we will need prospects. We will need people interested enough to hear our offer, all right, and consider actually working with us. But before we can actually get prospects, you need to have a business, all right? You need to be in business. Otherwise, why would you want prospects? And without actually having a business, it wouldn't make sense, delivering anything. And, your whole concept of your prospects and your sales would fall flat as well. So if the sensitive dependency all ties back to this initial principle, which is business. So then let's take a look at what's the actual process that we take somebody through in terms of business so that we can actually have a sale. Well, number one is that we'll take the prospect, the stranger, through the stages of awareness, consideration, and conversion. All right. So before we can speak of somebody being our prospect, we need their awareness. And then we need to get them to consider us as a solution, us as a business, or us as a viable business partner. And then we can convert them, which is sell them. But in order to actually get that prospect to make a selling decision, we need an offer. All right. And, this offer basically needs to consist of three very important components. And these three components in themselves actually break up into, I would say, 3 components, or actually 6 components, because the last one actually breaks down into another, few components. And so let's take a look at niche. All right, to sell something, you definitely need a niche. And then you need a unique selling proposition. Like, what makes you different? Why should someone pay attention to you? The biggest competition out there is really attention. You're competing for attention. You're not even competing with other businesses. You're actually competing with the fundamental substance that gets people to pay attention to you. You're competing with kitty cats on YouTube. You're competing with food, people eating, trashing, wasting. You're competing with people swagging around and performing hilarious dances on Instagram. That's what you're competing with. So you'd really need to understand and dial in on who it is you want to be important to and make the right message to them. Because if you're not speaking, I could be walking, when I walk down the street, everyone is speaking around me, but I only would pay attention to people who are actually speaking at me, who are speaking to me. And those are the people I would pay attention to. It's almost as if somebody says, "Hey, excuse me," and looks me in the eye. I can't help but pay attention to that. And so having a niche means that you're really targeting somebody you want to speak to, and then actually going down and speaking to them. Now, how do you keep their attention and create interest to keep keep their attention and have them, consider you or even convert and so that you can sell them? Well, the way you'll do this is basically, and this is an important step, is basically going to be by you basically following the value equation. And this is something I took from Alex Hermogi, who took it from older marketers and the whole family of marketers and direct response people. But why I took it was because it had the best way of putting something very untangible into a concept that could be, basically communicated. And so, the value equation is basically consists of 4 components. All right. So your offer, these are basically the value drivers of your offer. It's what makes somebody perceive your offer as valuable. You see, there's a principle where if you have the feeling that what you're paying for is more valuable than what you're actually, the amount of money you're giving someone, then that's a great deal. If I were to offer you something that is worth $10,000 and I would ask you for just $1,000, wouldn't that feel great? If I were to ask you for just $100 for something that's worth $10,000, wouldn't you think I'm insane? Wouldn't that be an insane offer? And that's because the perception of the value versus what you need to give, the energy you need to give to get that value, is much less than the actual value you're getting from it, from your energy. And so basically one component of the value equation is likelihood. You see, how likely is it that your promise, your idea, your method will actually be able to help somebody reach the desired outcome? How likely is it that you'll actually be able to help somebody sell their property? How likely is it that your savings plan will actually help somebody be able to reach the financial goal in future? And then the next value driver is time. So how long will it take? How long will it take you to help me sell my property? All right? How long will it take me? And so the next value driver in this value equation is sacrifice. All right? So I may believe you that it's very likely that you can help me sell my property in a short amount of time because you have the experience, you have a network of buyers in your agency. And so, but the thing is, what will this really cost me? Not just in terms of money, but like what effort am I gonna put in here? How often are people gonna be walking through my house? Will I have to renovate? Will I have to clean stuff? And what does it mean to me if I go through this whole process and it fails? Like, how will that make me look and feel towards other people that where I care about my identity? And then another final component in this all is basically going to be, the risk reversal, where I tell you, listen, all right, this is my offer for you. I'm going to help you sell your property, guaranteed, because I have a network, I have a bunch of people, and I've done this like 100 times, and I can do it for you within 3 months tops, because I know I have the resources. And don't worry, I know, we're going to get somebody to appraise the value for you, and there'll be times where you have to do like a home viewing, but don't worry about that. Just feel at home, and we'll walk these people through your apartment without much stress. And the risk reversal, so let's say all of this doesn't work. All right, let's say we don't get it sold in 3 months. But here's the thing, I will continue to work on this for you, all right, until it does work, until we get it sold. I will I will work on this with you until we get it sold. All right? Or, whatever else you giving that person to have them feel like, whoa, whatever risk they have is actually neglectable versus the benefit that they're actually getting. And let's say, for example, you were a agent, and maybe you were in the financial area, or a consultant, or whatever you may be doing. And so you would say, you know what, my niche is going to be families that I want to target, and I want to target families. My offer is going to be basically how to help you. I'm going to help you so your kid can buy their own apartment when they're 18. And the result of this is basically going to be that, number one, you have a guaranteed method that's going to allow your kid to buy their own property when they turn 18, no matter what the climate or economic climate is at that time. All right. And so basically, this would be your offer. This would be the components you need for it. All right. So you'd have your niche, then you'd have your offer, which is basically, so I'm going to help families who want to ensure their kids own property in the future, because that's the best investment to have. But unfortunately, they weren't able to have it because of the economical climate right now. But I'm going to help them basically, and this is the offer. Now we're going to check it. Number one, I'm going to help these families really accomplish it, because they, number one, will be able to make use of compounded interest and leverage time to basically boost the liquidity that they're creating for their kids, so that when they reach 18, no matter the economic climate, they will be able to buy property. And yeah, it means that you may be buying them one toy less, or you may be taking them to one less McDonald's, or one less treat a month, or maybe two. But at the end of it, they will own their own home, immobilia, and they may even be renting it out and making money with it. All right. So, and the risk reversal of all of this is like, listen, so you're creating a bunch of money for your kids in a certain amount of time. And so this is currently where you haven't managed to get across this point here, which is why you can't buy a property. In the future, they will have to get to this level in order to buy property. And through you saving over the next years, once they become 18, they will literally have enough money, and through compound interest, they will literally have enough money to be able to afford a home. And let's just say that there is a catastrophic event and the economy really crashes, then just imagine the liquidity they will have compared to you. All right, you're down here, and they will have all of this liquidity. Where will that put them in future? Like where will they be starting out? This is where you are today, and you haven't been able to get over the point to be able to buy your property. And so just imagine where you could have your kids start out in the future compared to where you are right now. All right. And if this is the level that you needed to cross to get a house, and you're here right now, where can you get your kids to be in the future? So this is basically an offer, and that was the risk reversal. And the benefit is just striking. And this is just an example, of course. But so that said, that would be an example for basically saying, all right, what is a value equation? All right. And those are the components that you will need for applying the principles to your client acquisition process. You will understand your business in principle. How, what makes a prospect? Why does that prospect, what you need to make a sale to that prospect? And, what do you deliver? Because that's the last component that you need to systematize. So these are the elements that you need to standardize and systematize. Is basically like, how do you get them to pay attention? How do you take them through awareness? How do you get them to consider you? And how do you actually convert them once they've considered you? Like, how do you create this offer that you're going to hand out to them? And what is your niche? What is your unique selling proposition? And then taking a look at your value equation elements, and then going down and saying, all right, now that I've got them, I've sold them, money transaction has happened, like, how do I systematize my service or product delivery? And why is that even important? Why is it important to systematize your service and product delivery? One reason is that you as a business, as a whole, there's a feedback loop. And so the quality of your services, when people are happy, they're going to review you, they're going to refer you, and basically they're going to be like your affiliates. All right. And in order for that to happen, you need to have some system in place where that, all right, this is the point where I ask you to review me. And after delivery or whatever stage it is, this is the point where I actually ask you for a testimonial. All right. And then all that put together is just going to create this referral wave that's going to get you more customers that are already pre-sold on your business, because compared to all other methods of marketing and getting attention, you know it yourself when you're looking for an electrician and you go online and you Google and you look at the stars. That's kind of like referral. It's kind of telling you, other people's opinion about this business. And it does have an impact on your choice. I mean, if you're looking for a dentist for your kids, for yourself, for your partner, would you choose the dentist with like 7 stars or 27 stars? Or would you choose the one with 3 stars? Like, between those 3, I think internally to which one you're gravitating. And so that's why it's important to also systematize your services and product delivery. And now that we know basically what the process is that, the client acquisition process is that we have to engage in our business, and what elements we need to systematize, we can actually look and go deeper into looking at the true components that we need to systematize. Number one are the business components, all right? So we need to really be clear on our niche. We need to be clear on the offer, all right? Because people in every niche have a different problem. And so our offer and value driver and message all builds around, that understanding of that niche. And then, of course, the result that we want to help them get, and the reason and the result they actually desire and want to work with us for. And so next is the client acquisition system. So what is a client acquisition system actually? Put into very simple terms, a client acquisition system, consists of 4 components. Component number 1 is basically you got to get leads, you got to get booked appointments, and then you got to close deals. And that's basically the 3 pillars of a client acquisition system: is getting leads, getting them to book appointments, and getting them to close, all right, and become customers. And so there's a conversion process involved from getting that lead. There's a process, how do you even get the lead? And then there's another process, like how do you get them to book an appointment? And then there's another process involved in how do you actually get them to become a closed deal? And so this is the conversion process. And so the conversion process you need to consider here is, all right, to get a lead, we need to get somebody's attention. All right, first we need their attention, and then we need to their interest. And then from there on, once we got their interest, so we get their attention by making a phone call, sending an email, or maybe reaching out, or maybe placing our ad in front of them. All right, and so they check out our ad hook. They check out our content title, maybe on Google, the snippet if it's SEO, and they basically check out the subject line, and this piques their interest, and so they open the email, they start reading the ad or watching the VSL, and then they basically, if it's an email, maybe you even using a Loom video in it, or if you're reaching out with a message and a video, maybe they're watching the video and it creates interest, and so they book an appointment, all right, because they're interested and they're willing to commit to whatever comes next after that. And they're not booking the appointment, to be clear on this, they're not booking the appointment so that you can sell them something. They know you're going to try and sell them, but really what they're committing to is that next step. They know they're in a process, and they're like, you know what, I want to check out, I want to know more, I want to move this whole thing with me and my goal further, and I want to get together with this person. So what they're committing to is the appointment and the resultant outcome of that appointment. Even though they're trying and they're moving towards that ultimate goal that only your product and service can help them achieve, but still in that moment they're committing to that next step, and because they trust you and they consider you to be the one that can help them, and so they'll most likely show up. But you'll need to do something in order for them to show up, and so that would be maybe the part where you have some nurturing going on and some reminders that you send out, and so they show up, and you want to close the deal now. All right, so how do you do that? Well, you'll start by priming or pre-framing them. You'll start by taking them through a process. All right, what does priming somebody mean in a sales process? It means that you're going to take them through a stage of self-awareness. I mean, imagine that you ask somebody, you're in a call, and I ask you, like, why did you decide to take this call? Why did you decide to watch this video? I mean, at this point, why are you still watching it? And what do you hope to get from this appointment? Like, what do you hope to get from this? And then in the next stage, you might ask them and say, that sounds really interesting, and I'm curious. Tell me why that's so important for you. Like, what impact will that have on your life if you're able to achieve that? Wow. You know what? Whatever outcome it is that you want to achieve sounds really amazing, and I considering things left and right, I think I can actually help you with it. But I would like to find out a little bit more. And by the way, this is it's also called a Socratic method of questioning, based on Socrates and his way of his midwife way of questioning, so to say. Kind of like you're letting that person sell themselves, like you're letting them bear their own baby. You're not forcing it upon them. So you're basically letting them get impregnated with that idea and bring it to life and birth the ambition to want to bring it into life themselves. And so next you'll be asking, and you find out, basically what it is they actually want and why they want it. You'll be asking them, so what has been preventing you from actually accomplishing this all this time? And so they might be thinking about it, and they may say, you know what, I've tried it here, I've tried it there. And you'd be, okay, and so how was that? Why do you think you failed? What was wrong there? And they might tell you stuff. And so you start learning to see what traumas they have in terms of tried and failed. Or they may just tell you, I was afraid. And so you may see that the problem has to do with their self-limiting doubts, and where they think like, you know what, I just didn't believe in myself. Or the third one may be resources, and where they say, it was just, I just didn't have the time somehow. I had to do so much stuff, and I just didn't catch up on it. And so once you know this, you know the true identity of the actual dragon that you need to help them fight, because you're speaking to two people. Remember this, as we said, the dialectical, there's the thesis, the synthesis. You're speaking to those two things, and as they're considering, the more they're considering you, the stronger your antithesis is becoming, like the future state, their ambition to want to go to that future state. But at the same time, the friction created by that current state, it's like an entity, and it's gonna fight to death. So you're speaking to both sides, and depending on how you speak, you're gonna empower one of the two sides. But what you want to do is give them a sword for their future state to slay that current state dragon. And you will do that, and this is the point where this is the content part of after you've basically pre-framed them and primed them, where you deliver your content, but in a way that serves to basically prime them for your offer, which is basically saying, you know what, let's say they were kind of having the reason and why they weren't able to achieve it, and what stood in the way was basically based on the vehicle, tried and failed. So then you might be like, listen, we're going to be setting up a system. We don't promise you any results, because that's not what we do. We promise to empower you, and from empowered users come results, because you know better than us who your target audience is and how to speak to them. You're an expert in what you do. All you need is the right empowerment. It's kind of almost like a plane. And I want to bring this analogy in, because a lot of people don't consider it that way, that basically why step away from results. It's because, you see, focusing on results is like trying to force a plane to fly, and trying to figure out how to make a plane fly by throwing stones over and over and over again. But you see, what actually happened in order for a piece of rock, a piece of metal to lift off and actually stay airborne, was somebody being able to discover the principle of lift, meaning that they were actually able to create a system, understand the forces that they had to overcome. There's always forces you need to overcome in order for them to unlock the forces that would basically uplift them. And there's always those two, like it's kind of like yin and yang. There's forces that you need to overcome, and there's forces that will kind of give you that lift. And so they figured out that a wing has a kind of, the top is rounded off like this, which means that the wind travels a further distance basically across the wing than it does at the bottom, which means the air travels slower up here and faster down here, and that creates a pull. So literally, a plane doesn't fly because it has propulsion. It flies because that propulsion just creates that environment within a drag happens, and that plane is pulled up through the merit of its wings and the system behind it all. And so basically what I'm saying here is that by giving our clients the system they need to have in place, it's like helping them, like they're trying to say, I want to lift off with my business. Okay, sure, no problem. Like, I'm not going to promise you you're going to fly and you're going to like be able to fly to wherever. No. So you want to fly? All right. This is what you need to fly, and that's what we help you put in place. You are going to need to overcome gravity, all right? And this is how we'll overcome gravity. You need propulsion, and you need a system, and you need to create the effect of pull. And how are we going to do that? We're going to give you wings, all right? What are your wings? In our terms, this is like the conversion process, the client acquisition system, all right? This is going to create that pull, that drag. And so going back to you're in the conversation right now with, in the sales conversation with your prospect, and you're basically at the point of told you what's standing in the way, and it's basically based on them basically saying, all right, I tried and failed. And so what I was trying to get at is, you're not gonna like hit the results that you're gonna be getting for them. Oh yeah, because don't worry, we get you these results. You'll just be telling them, listen, you haven't been able to lift off so far, and that's just because you haven't been focusing on the right system to get you to lift off. And see, in our us helping you, we're going to first kind of like map out your system to see if your aerodynamics are okay or not. I'm speaking in analogies here because that plays a role. Because once we kind of get you propelled and moving forward, we're going to make sure that you don't have too much resistance from the air, and we're going to like set up some wings for you, all right, so that when you have enough propulsion, you will create this drag and it will naturally pull you up. And so we're basically going to empower you. We'll give you what you need to be empowered to be able to get those results on your own, which is lifting off. All right. And so this is basically what you would talk at. Let's say the person maybe said what's standing in their way is like more internally. It doesn't have to do with the vehicle. So they're like kind of saying like, you know what? Yeah, well, I was kind of like, I didn't have the skills. I wasn't able. And I think this and that. And you could say, you know what? Well, part of the system, that we're going to be giving you so that you can really lift off. We also have in place some training, some stuff so that you actually have the skill. You'll be able to speak with us along the way so you understand what you're doing and you can actually navigate. And as you're doing it, and we'll be your feedback loop, you will actually gain the insight and understanding you need to literally pull this off in the way you want to pull it off. And that will be like really awesome. And so that's what the value, that's what your content part is actually going to be about. But let's say now you've established, and that's why active listening is really important in this process in the last step in the sales call. And it's important because now through your active listening, you may know that maybe they told you that there's a third element that may be preventing them from moving forward, and it may be that they're just they didn't have the time and it was just too much, and so that's a point where you could say, you know what, we offer it done for you. We have a whole bunch of templates, so you don't have to actually go through this whole thing. You can catch up, so you'll kind of pay forward in terms of we'll give you the templates and we'll save you all that time. You just gotta like record your video, and we're already giving you the questions, so it's like you're being interviewed and you're just answering questions about something you already know and do every day. And at the end of it, you have a copy. We're going to show you how to use AI to create your copy, but not just generate it for you, but how to use you, what you're about and what makes you unique and human, and basically just use AI to make the process more effective and time saving. All right, so that's how we're gonna get you up and running and lifting off in no time. And if you look at this and those three approaches, you will see a completely different way of how you offering somebody the deal now. And then so if you ask them, so does that actually sound like all costs and whatever put aside, would that be something where you think like, well, I'd really be interested in taking the next step in this because it feels like could actually get me to lift off? And if they say yeah, then you'd be like, well, look, this is the offer I'm going to make you. I'm going to give you A, B, C, what we talked about. This is going to help you increase the likelihood that it's going to work. This is going to help you save time. This is going to be what you're going to have to sacrifice and deal with, but the outcome at the end is going to be way worth more. And the guarantee is that, let's say, for example, after 15 days, you have a feeling, I don't know if this is right, I don't really like how this is going, then you can just step out, no questions asked. 14-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. And so literally all you're committing to right now is your future, and that you want to be that future person, that future state. And so this is where you close them, giving them two opportunities. One of them basically pivoting towards, saying yes and wanting that future state. And that's the conversion process for you. Now that you know the conversion process, you may be like, okay, all that is cool, but I thought like at the end of this I'd be able to actually build this, to actually put it into practice. Well, yes. And what you need for that is you need your conversion methods. Because you see, as we said up top, we said that, sensitive dependency on initial conditions, meaning kind of that, by standardizing the operations of a subsystem, the number of variables that cause an outcome are limited. So the overall system and its outcomes become more predictable. And that's really important to understand, and you can only understand it right now. So we're taking the variables within this system, we're creating the variables. One variable will be like, what method am I using to get leads? Am I using inbound or outbound? All right, so this is the method I'm using to get leads. And so the next question in all of this would basically be like, okay, so I'm getting leads inbound or outbound. So what's the method that I'm going to be using, to actually, what channel am I going to be using? So for inbound, I may be using social media. I may be using Google. Okay, great. So let's take a look at outbound. All right, maybe we'll be sending direct messages, maybe emails, maybe phone calls, or maybe we'll be running ads. So these are the variables in the part of like how we're going to get attention and people's interest. And so, the next step is like, okay, we're gonna need a method to qualify them, because we don't just want volumes of leads. I mean, that's the problem that a lot of people have. They have all these leads, and then they sit there and have to call with people who, actually wanted a washing machine, and they thought maybe somebody was selling one since they're moving, and it's not really like they wanted to buy a house or something. I'm just making this up, but in principle, you know what I mean, and why it's important to qualify your leads. So why would we need a booking method? Why would we need a booking method? We need a booking method because if somebody says, I want to do this, you need a way to show them when you're available so they can kind of figure out if that coincides with when they're available. And the best way to do this is by offering a booking method. And you have thousands of ways to do that and methods. And we like to help for this part of the systematization. We like to use our system called QR Campaign and its smart system. It's smart CRM. Basically, that's an all-in-one marketing platform that allows you to basically manage all of these parts. Your inbound, you can build your websites in it. Your outbound, you can automate your outreach, which is your direct messages. You can run them all from within QR Campaign and its smart CRM system, and basically even dial out from within that system, and you can even manage your ads from within that system. So there'll be no more, keeping dozens of logins and stuff like that. It's all going to be streamlined because we also believe in simplicity. And so basically, all right, the whole system, what I'm talking about here, all of this is possible within this one system that I'm talking about. You may be thinking of other systems that you kind of acquainted to, but when I'm showing you this, I'm thinking of just one place and one system. I'm not talking about a whole stack of different technology. All this is like plug and play within one system. And so we're talking about, we need a method to book them. And then what do we do with the appointment? All right, so we need the booking method so that they can book an appointment. And then once they've booked an appointment, we also need a way to get them to show up, right? And how are we going to do that? Well, how are we going to get them to show up? We're going to send them reminder sequences. Just like how we're going to get them to book an appointment, Not everybody is going to respond to your ad or your webinar or whatever, so you will nurture them. So you have a nurturing sequences that over time nurture people, sending them value and get them to, book that appointment. And then you're going to remind them to actually show up and, commit to whatever it is that they're going to be doing in that appointment. And then after that, like, what do you actually do? What do you actually do when somebody is in your appointment? And do you sell the heck out of them? Or do you do what we've spoke about in this training right now, which is you're gonna pre-frame the offer and sale. You're gonna prime them for it, and you're gonna do that by basically taking them through the Socratic method of questioning that I've shown you. And you're basically you're gonna use your sales call script. But those are the components and variables within your sales call script, and then you're gonna hit the close button, and you're gonna basically close that sale, which is going to be the next step, which is how do you close it? Well, how do you speak to their objections? Luckily, since you've gone through the Socratic method of questioning and you've primed them, you'll actually know the true identity of their dragon, and you know what weapons and swords you need to give them, what skills they will need to create the experience point necessary to kill that dragon. And I'm taking a role-playing analogy, RPG game analogy here, because it's the best illustration for this. Because knowing that you'll be crafting your offer and how you deliver it based on the real problem they have. They get interested because of your unique selling proposition, what you propose, that big promise. But really, after you've primed them and you get there and they open up and tell you really how that dragon looks like that's bugging them, and you can show them that you understand it and you'll help them solve that, you'll still help them get that big promise. But essentially, there's always two problems that people really have. It's the one in the outside that everyone sees, and there's the one that they only reveal to you if you ask the right questions and in the right way. And that's what you're gonna close them on. And so once you've closed them, that doesn't end the process and whatever it is you're systematizing. You're also the last element of your client acquisition system is going to be your delivery process, because now you've got them, they've committed to you. So you've got to systematize your onboarding, you've got to systematize your delivery mechanism, and what happens when the desired result and outcome has been achieved for you and for them. For you, it means like, when do you ask them to review you? When do you ask them for a testimonial? And when do you ask them for or suggest referrals, making referrals, which, by the way, you can set up in this system as well. You can create incentives, and you can get your clients in there with opportunities and make that referral process as simple as possible. I remember a lot of clients that we had in the financial advisory. Their problem was that a lot of their clients never really referred them because, number one, they didn't want to just hand over their card, and number two, they had no idea how to refer them. They weren't salespeople, and so after somebody one or two times maybe intimidated them, saying, it's okay, I don't need it, giving them a rejection, they didn't do it again. But just imagine, like, they had a QR code that leads to your contact page, and all they have to do, basically, if the situation arises, say, you know what, check out this guy, and they just scan it, and the rest is up to you, and your page and your copy does the talking, and your VSL video does the converting. Just imagine how that would be. Or what we offer our clients is even to have a chatbot on that site, because maybe they want to start asking questions. They see your VSL and they still have these questions. Well, don't worry, just ask me as if I was here. Go ahead and ask the video questions. Bam, ask it. And who's going to answer it? It's going to be the trained the AI trained on you and your business. It's going to answer the questions that person may have. And so that's the importance of systematizing the service delivery process. And with that said, at the end of all of this, you will literally have your entire client acquisition process planned out, and it will be running within your market, which is the environment. You will have your input, which is going to be strangers that you pour in. You'll have your process that's going to take the strangers from stranger to being a client through the client acquisition process that we spoke about over here. All right, we're going to take them from attention to interest, get them to book an appointment, get them to show up, prime them, and then close them. All right, and all of this is going to happen. We're going to make happen by utilizing the feedback we get from our environment, which is the market, and then iterating that process based on it. And the last example I want to leave you is actually understanding, and this is so important, and why I want to actually beat on this for the last time. And it's basically, the importance of actually, having a system, and what that means for you to be able to systematically grow and prove that system. You see, a lot of people with methods are used to saying, if you use this method, if you take this pill, your headache will go away. But in business, it doesn't always work that way, because your headache is more complex with a business. Your problem is more complex, and just taking a method, a pill, will not always give you the results you want, at least not long term. But what will is the systematic approach that we've just been talking about, which basically consists of, number one, you understanding that you have an input. Okay, so you have an input to your system. Very important. There's something you're going to put into your system, and then you're going to take that, like you're going to put in strangers, and you're going to take them through a process, and then you're going to get an output, which in our case is what we desire, which is appointments. All right, because the more booked appointments we have, the more likely it is that we're going to create clients. And so it's important to understand that working a system isn't just like hoping for luck. It's like a number combination. As we said, that the system itself consists of subsystems, all right, smaller components. And so in our client acquisition system, one of the subsystems is the appointment getting system. All right, and it will basically consist of certain variables. So the subsystem within our main system will consist of certain variables, and you can imagine these variables. You can imagine every subsystem as a lock, a door. Like your entire client acquisition system is a door you want to open, and once you open it, you get clients. So now it's locked, and you have these locks. One of the locks, for example, is in your process getting appointments. All right, is your appointment getting system, and every subsystem, every lock has a number combination. So let's take, for example, the number combination here of this padlock for getting appointments would be: you need phone numbers, then you need to make calls. All right, so you need phone numbers, you need to make calls, you need positive responses, meaning like when you make a call, you need someone to actually like positively respond to you so you can pitch them the offer, and then you actually need to book appointments. All right, and so number one, for this process, like it has an input, a process, and an output. What you measure on the output side is your key metric. All right, this is your conversion rate, your call conversion rate, your call to appointment conversion rate. All right, meaning if it's like 10%, then that means 10% of all the numbers you dial become appointments. But there's a reason for that. And so if this key metric, it falls below, let's say our desired outcome for this is 10%, then our phone system, we would need at least 10 calls to produce, we would need at least 100 calls to produce 10 appointments. So let's get it more realistic and conservative, and let's say 3%. Okay, so we would need 100 calls to get 3 appointments. So let's see, can we, like, what do we need to do? What else is there? Just the calls? No. Well, we need the phone number. So it means we would need 100 phone numbers. Then we would need to make 100 calls. We need to call all those 100 numbers, and then we would need to basically get at least, there's a fraction not everyone will pick up, and let's say we get at least from these calls we get a 30% positive response rate. Okay, and from that 30% we'll be able to book at least 3 appointments. So now we would say, all right, these are the padlocks and variables. Why do we, let's say our results here would be somewhere at 0%. Let's say we're not getting any appointments. So we would look at it and say, how many numbers are we dialing? So maybe it turns out that we only have, at any given point, maybe we only have 20 phone numbers in our within our pipeline or in our CRM. So, well, we need at least 100 to be able to pass on enough energy or value, all right, through the variables in this subsystem to produce the key metric, which is 3%, or in this case would be 3 appointments. All right, so we're kind of short 80 phone numbers. So let's say we get another 80 phone numbers, but we're still only making 1 appointment. So all right, 100 calls, we're doing 1 appointment, but somehow, like, if our benchmark is somewhere at 3%, and we know the industry benchmark should be around 3%, then why aren't we getting 2 more appointments? Well, next thing that we would do is we would basically then, of course, take a look within the process at the next variable, which is, okay, how many calls are we making? Maybe it turns out that we provided 100 phone numbers, but maybe the person is only dialing 30 people per day or per week. So even though we have our KPI here for the phone numbers checks out, but here we have a problem with the KPI for the number of calls. All right, and so this is basically how you will go through variable for variable, and this is the principle we spoke about, the sensitive relationship to initial conditions. So this entire system is basically connected by the sensitive relationship of the initial condition of every component to each other. And then we also have our principle of, if all things considered, we only change 1 element at a time. And so we have 100 numbers, and then we'd have to do 100 dials, and if the key metric still didn't change, then we'd only go and say, okay, we've done 100 phone numbers, but we've only done 30 calls. Okay, so then we did 100 phone numbers and we did 100 dials, and oh look, we only got like 5% positive responses. So how can we get more positive responses? You know what? Maybe that has to do with our open. How do we open the conversation? How do we start this conversation? And then once we've checked off this and we've got that all checked up, and then suddenly we notice, bam, we're within KPI here, 30% response rate. 30 calls, we're doing 100 calls, and we're doing 100 phone numbers, 100 calls, we're getting a 30% positive response rate, and we're actually getting 3 booked appointments, and our key metric is also where it's supposed to be. And you see, this is the key to actually really getting your marketing to work, is getting any system to work. And it's basically the scientific method. And it's only with the scientific method and approach to all your system that you'll be able to really accomplish any success in it. Because you'll have a threshold of KPI where you need to have more calls, you need to have more numbers at least than your calls. You need to make at least 100 calls. You need to have a positive response of 30% at least, and that will allow you to get 3 to 6 appointments or 3 appointments. All right, and if you're within KPI, then sweet for all of your variables. But if one of your variables is not within KPI, then you will know what you need to fix. All right, and that's basically how the system's approach to client acquisition works, and how you will get it to work for you successfully, so that you can put in strangers, take them through your client acquisition process, and out comes a great output. And I would like to, at this point, offer you the chance of booking an appointment, and we can go over it and see what you need to put in place and map out an actual game plan that will take you from your current state to your future state, and actually help you systematize and automate your business. We'll take a look at, what operations and processes do you have that need to be standardized, and then how can we systematize all of this? Where do you need some SOPs, and then what do we need to automate, which we'll do and pack into the technical system that we have. QR campaign will set you up with the smart CRM, and beyond that, does it make sense for you to use the chatbot trained to your business, and so on and so forth. But let's sit down. If you really, if you've watched this and you're still watching it, it means you really want to move. And right now you're in a battle between those two sides. And so let me be the deciding factor. Just click the button down there and, book in an appointment, and let's have a digital coffee and just talk about your business and how to get you to where you want to be in future, which means systematizing your business. And so with that said, whether you take me up on that offer or not, it's fine. If you've watched this, and even if you've just had one aha moment, it means that your paradigm has begun to shift, and that's basically fine with me, and that's all I wanted to accomplish. And everything else, and that's what we're passionate about doing, will be a bonus where you say, you know what, I'm really into this, I want to do this, I want to figure this out, can you help me? Let's get together, let's sit down, let's talk about my business and how you guys can help me systematize it and automate stuff. Then happy to do that. Just click the button below and we'll hop on a call with you and schedule out something and get you moving on to really where you want to be, and basically by giving you what you need and empowering you, and after empowerment those results come on their own. So that said, best of luck, and hopefully talk soon.